Welcome to Sound of Hope News. My name is Daniela Wolensack, and today is June 28th. Citizens of Shanghai mock the city's so-called victory over COVID. They compare eating in restaurants to joining underground organizations, as many aspects of daily life are banned. A reformed Japanese crime boss talks about organ harvesting in China. He says Japanese media and doctors are aware of the issue but cover up the story to continue business with China. Finally, an American academic urges the US to expose China's corruption. He states it will help weaken the CCP's legality and strengthen the US. Shanghai has gone through 3 months of lockdown. Many restaurants were out of business during this period of time. On June 25th, Secretary General of the Shanghai CCP, Li Qiang, said that Shanghai has achieved social dynamic clearing of COVID. This means the city has successfully defended itself against COVID, but he did not mention the many collateral damages caused by the city's closure. This includes the severe blow to the economy. Although the lockdown is gradually loosening, restaurants are still facing difficulties. So far, only the 3 districts of Jinshan, Fengxian, and Chongming have resumed dine-in services. Restaurants in all other areas are not allowed to open for dine-in services. Many restaurant owners estimated their monthly loss is around 1 million yuan without dine-in services. In order to maintain their businesses, they have begun some unusual strategies. Today, netizens are mocking dining out in Shanghai as having a meal in a restaurant is as exciting as a thief breaking into a house. Someone had a popular post on Twitter in which the author described a colleague's dine-in experience. On the 2nd floor of a shopping mall, the restaurant's curtains were closed with only a little gap. Everyone sat around a table. The dishes were not served on plates, but in takeout boxes with plastic bags. The restaurant instructed diners to be ready to pick up the plastic bags and leave, saying, "If you get caught in the restaurant, just say you're here to get takeout." Netizens mocked, "Now that is just ultimate consumerism." Netizens mocked that living in Shanghai today is like joining an underground organization. You whisper daily about where dine-in restaurants are, and you gasp and sigh when one is shut down by officials. You then continue the same routine, risking your life in the underground eating community. Movement. Netizens frequently refer to a famous quote by the spokesperson of the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Zhao Lijing. "If you live in China, you should have fun quietly." Race is an online writer with millions of fans. He published an article on the 22nd entitled "Dining in Shanghai, You Could Only Have Fun Secretly." He said, "It's not just eating in a restaurant. I feel that you have to do everything sneakily in Shanghai now. It seems that all walks of life are now using code language in Shanghai. For example, operating a restaurant is termed having a few folks to try the dishes. Some gyms have big signs saying closed, but when you get to the door, the trainer tells you to step in quickly and then hurriedly shut the door." Some netizens state the government specializes in harassing people, not fighting the epidemic. "I just feel deeply sad and hopeless." Ushio Sugawara, a former leader of the Yamaguchi gang in Japan, left in 2015 and is now an economic commentator with more than a dozen books on economics. He had accidentally learned about live organ harvesting in China 15 years ago. In 2007, the brother of a friend of Sugawara had a worsening liver disease and was pronounced dead unless his organs were transplanted. Through an intermediary, the friend found a matching donor in China a month later and was ready to undergo surgery. However, before the surgery, a blood product called albumin prepared by the hospital was found to be counterfeit and could not be used. Our friend asked Sugawara to purchase the albumin in Japan and send it to Beijing. As a result, Sugawara was able to learn about the dark secrets of the Chinese Communist Party, live organ harvesting of Falun Gong practitioners. In an interview with the Epoch Times in Tokyo on June 20th, Sugawara recalled going to the Beijing Armed Police General Hospital, where he said, "I was told by a doctor in charge of reception that the donor was next door, and he pulled back the curtain and I saw a young man of 21. He looked unconscious because of the anesthetic. This doctor spoke Japanese. He told me that the donor was a bad man, a convicted criminal sentenced to death, and that he would eventually die anyway, so we might as well let him make another contribution before he died. He was very young and had a very healthy liver. I asked him what this man was doing. The doctor said he was a member of a terrorist organization. I continued to ask him what he had done, and he replied that he was a Falun Gong member. However, the surgery failed and the patient died during the operation. According to Sugawara, the young man was wearing bandages on his arms and legs. The day before, he had had the tendons in his hands and feet cut. The doctor explained it was to prevent him from escaping, and that when people are scared, their bodies curl up and affect the quality of their organs. So they gave him a tendon-cutting operation. Sugawara stated he was still alive when I went to see him, so it was a living transplant. Sugawara said that in 2007, many rich Chinese people started to form groups traveling to Japan for medical tourism. The medical agent who had studied in Japan had had dealings with many famous Japanese doctors. When the reporter asked if the Japanese doctors were aware of the problematic origin of the organs, Sugawara said they knew the donors were Falun Gong practitioners, but they deliberately avoided the issue, because the interests of doctors and patients are the same. The Chinese side's argument is that since they are on the death row and will eventually be executed anyway, why not let them do some good deeds for others before they die? Sugawara also said that without the involvement of Chinese officials, it would be impossible to start organ transplants, and that many things could not be handled. He stated, "At the airport, we used a special exit. The cars that came to pick me up were two black Lexus with flags in front of them, and they used a special and secret passage. It was the car of the armed police that opened the way for us. The car drove directly under the plane. Then the customs officials stamped for me, and then the car drove out from the place through a VIP entrance." The reporter asked if major Japanese media knew about this. Sugawara said they knew, but they did not report it because they still wanted to continue their business in China. The Chinese doctors don't think they've done anything wrong. They think they're dealing with death row inmates. They've been brainwashed and they all think that way. CCP corruption is prevalent in mainland China, but is exported overseas through the Belt and Road Initiative and other ways of giving money. An American academic reminded the U.S. government that it is time to expose the CCP's corruption. On June 26, Nate Sibley, a researcher at the Hudson Institute in the United States, pointed out in the Wall Street Journal that exposing the corruption of the CCP regime and its senior officials will help weaken the CCP's legality to govern at home. The organization department of the CCP Central Committee issues an internal notice in March requiring the spouses and children of officials at or above the ministerial level not to hold any real estate overseas directly or indirectly, or hold shares in entities registered overseas. Otherwise, they will not be promoted. Senior officials and immediate family members are also not allowed to open accounts with overseas financial institutions if they are not related to studying or working. Sibley said Xi's ban highlights a weakness in his regime. China under the CCP is a full-fledged kleptocratic state. This means its rulers seek power and personal gain at the expense of the governed. Its leaders often hide their ill-gotten gains overseas, including in the United States. This is one of the main reasons the Chinese people are angry with the regime. Opaque financing fuels corruption in some of the world's poorest countries, creating opportunities for Chinese exploitation. He proposed to the U.S. government and Congress that the U.S. should pursue a two-pronged approach. The Biden administration should first release a long overdue Treasury Department study on China's global money laundering. At the same time, accelerate the implementation of the U.S. strategy on countering corruption. It includes measures ranging from eliminating the secrets of shell companies to supporting investigative journalists to help expose the overseas wealth of CCP elites. Sibley also believes that Congress should speed up bipartisan anti-corruption legislation, such as the Crook Act, It will increase State Department funding and support the rule of law in fragile states at a critical moment. Extend anti-money laundering oversight from traditional banks to other often abused departments, such as legal and accounting firms. These measures will help counter the CCP's kleptocracy in the United States and countries along the Belt and Road Initiative. Sibley concluded that whatever the source, dirty money undermines the integrity of the U.S. financial system, undermines U.S. national security, and is an affront to American values. He said, "It is unconscionable that the Communist Party officials who support genocide in Xinjiang, repression in Hong Kong, and threaten Taiwan bury their stolen wealth in our backyard." Thank you so much for watching. If you like what you saw, please share this video with friends and family. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.